Eleanor Hargrove sat at the polished mahogany table in the city's most opulent Italian bistro. The kind of place where the waiters wore tuxedos and the menu didn't list prices. The candlelight flickered off the silverware, casting long shadows that mirrored the darkness creeping into her heart. Her children Alexander, the eldest with his sharp jaw and sharper ambitions, Benjamin, the middle child who hid his greed behind a perpetual grin, and Clarissa, the youngest, whose beauty was as superficial as her affections had orchestrated this evening with meticulous care. It was meant to look like a family celebration, but Eleanor knew better. At 74, her instincts were as honed as the real estate empire she'd built from a modest $10,000 inheritance. "You'll adore the new senior community, Mom," Clarissa cooed, her voice dripping with artificial sweetness. Her diamond earrings gifts from Eleanor for her 30th birthday glinted mockingly. "They have painting classes, yoga sessions, even a little garden club. It's like a resort." Alexander nodded vigorously. His tailored navy suit one Eleanor had insisted on buying for his first big corporate job. Straining against his broadening shoulders, Benjamin, ever the follower, chimed in with a forced chuckle. "Yeah, and the staff is top-notch. No more worrying about forgetting things or getting lost in the house." Eleanor forced a serene smile, her silver hair perfectly coiffed, her emerald eyes betraying nothing. Inside, a storm raged. She'd deliberately staged a few senior moments over the past months, misplacing keys, repeating questions to gauge their loyalty. Would they stand by her, as she'd stood by them through divorces, failed businesses, and endless bailouts? The answer unfolded before her like a tragic play. The aroma of garlic-infused pasta and aged Chianti filled the air. But it turned Eleanor's stomach. This wasn't dinner. It was an ambush. "Dr. Hargrove recommends it," Alexander continued, invoking the family doctor they'd no doubt bribed for a favorable diagnosis. "A safe space, with round-the-clock care. For someone, well, at your stage." "Stage," Eleanor echoed softly, sipping her water to steady her nerves. "Like a performance? How fitting." Clarissa reached across the table, her manicured nails grazing Eleanor's wrinkled hand. "It's therapeutic, Mom. You could paint landscapes, like you used to with Dad. Useful hobbies to keep the mind sharp." Useful, the word echoed in Eleanor's mind like a curse. While she painted away her days in some sterile facility, they'd dismantle her legacy. The sprawling Victorian mansion in the hills, the lakeside cabin worth $400,000, the urban apartments netting $250,000 in rentals annually, and the investment portfolio she'd nurtured to $2 million. All born from that initial $10,000 she'd scraped together as a young widow, flipping her first fixer-upper. "When do you envision this transition?" Eleanor asked, her voice steady as granite. "Next week," Benjamin blurted, too eagerly. "We've handled the paperwork, just a signature or two, and we'll manage the properties. No stress for you." The silence that followed was pregnant with unspoken truths. They exchanged glances, fidgety as thieves. "Don't fret about the assets, Mom," Alexander said smoothly. "We'll oversee everything. It's overwhelming at your age." Overwhelming. The empire she'd forged through sleepless nights, shrewd negotiations, and sheer willpower now deemed too burdensome for the woman who'd created it. That night, back in her grand home with its high ceilings and antique chandeliers, Eleanor feigned exhaustion. Clarissa offered her a glass of warm milk, laced with what Eleanor suspected were sedatives. She pretended to swallow, tucking the pills under her tongue and disposing of them later. At midnight, muffled voices drifted from the study. Eleanor crept down the hallway, her bare feet silent on the Persian rugs she'd imported from her travels. Peering through the cracked door, she saw them. Alexander spreading out deeds and financial statements on the desk where she'd closed her first major deal. Benjamin pouring scotch into crystal tumblers she'd gifted for his wedding. Clarissa rifling through a folder, her laughter sharp as a blade. "The mansion alone is $500,000 easy," Alexander whispered, his eyes gleaming. "Lake cabin, another 400K apartments, 250K in value, plus the rentals, and the stocks pushing 850K. Total haul, over $2 million. We move quick," Clarissa urged, clinking glasses. "Before she cottons on. That Confusion Act is gold. Ask her the date twice tomorrow. Note it down for the incompetence claim." Benjamin snorted. "She repeated herself 3 times last dinner. Pathetic. Our lawyers, primed, declare her unfit. Rewrite the will." Eleanor's blood boiled. They'd fallen for her ruse, but it exposed their rot. She retreated to her room, heart pounding. By dawn, while they snored off their revelry, she dressed in a crisp charcoal suit, packed a leather briefcase with her passport, hidden gems worth $100,000, and keys to a safety deposit box in a distant town. A prearranged cab whisked her to the airport, one way to Ocean View Bay, California haven her children knew nothing about. The flight was a blur of reflections. Her late husband, Henry, had always warned Eleanor, family ties can fray, build your own fortress. He'd been her partner in the early days, hammering nails into that first property flip. Now, his memory fueled her resolve. Ocean View Bay greeted her with crashing waves and salty breezes, stirring nostalgia. This was where it started. A tiny bungalow bought with her $10,000 nest egg, transformed into a rental goldmine. The cab pulled up to a weathered blue cottage with white trim, overgrown with ivy. "Sure, this is it, ma'am," the driver asked. "Looks abandoned." "Precisely as it should," Eleanor replied, tipping generously. The key turned with a rusty groan. Inside, dust motes danced in sunbeams piercing lace curtains. Furniture shrouded in sheets evoked ghosts of the past. She uncovered a velvet armchair, sinking into it with a sigh. Then, a note on the kitchen counter. "Ms. Hargrove, I've guarded your secrets. Sophia." Sophia's name evoked warmth, the loyal housekeeper Eleanor had employed for 20 years. Until her children deemed her extravagant and dismissed her. "We can handle the chores, Mom," they'd lied, isolating her further. Footsteps on the porch. Eleanor tensed, but the door creaked open to reveal Sophia, now in her late 60s. Silver-streaked hair in a bun, eyes kind as ever. "I knew you'd come," she said, embracing Eleanor. "When Clarissa phoned, probing for dirt on your forgetfulness, I stonewalled her, but I sensed trouble." "How?" Eleanor whispered. "She grilled me on hidden assets, bank accounts, greedy as sin, but I remembered your instructions. If shadows fall, meet me here. I've tended the place monthly." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes. For the first time in ages, she felt seen not as prey, but as a force. Sophia led her to a concealed study, once a pantry, now housing file cabinets and a wall safe. "Combination. Henry's anniversary," Sophia prompted. "Inside. Deedsta undisclosed properties, a vineyard in Napa, $300, a condo in Seattle, $200, offshore accounts totaling $500,000, a revised will disinheriting her children in favor of a foundation, and the crown jewel, blueprints for eternal haven, a sanctuary for elderly women betrayed by kin, funded by her empire's proceeds." "Your vision lives," Sophia said. "Permits approved, architects on standby. Just needed your spark." Eleanor clutched the folder, memories flooding. Henry's deathbed plea to give back. Her quiet obsession with aiding the forgotten. "And Mr. Harrington?" she asked, naming her clandestine attorney. "Waiting. His daughter tried institutionalizing him. Last year. Empathy runs deep." Eleanor dialed. "Miss Hargrove," Harrington boomed. "The vultures convene tomorrow at 11 a.m. Your house. Alexander, Benjamin, Clarissa, plus your sister Vivian Ager for scraps. They're shyster. Ms. Langley, too." Vivian, Eleanor's envious sibling, who'd contested their parents' will and badgered Eleanor to liquidate family heirlooms. Of course she'd join the plunder. "Our countermeasures?" Eleanor queried. "Recordings from 3 years back, your kids. Candid gripes about waiting for the old bat to croak. The authentic documents. And the video bombshell." The video, Eleanor's preemptive confession, detailing suspicions, exposing Alexander's embezzlement from her accounts, Benjamin's gambling debts she'd covered, Clarissa's affair funded by loans never repaid. That evening, over herbal tea, Sophia shared more. "Benjamin visited us 6 months ago, fishing for dementia signs. I praised your acuity." He stormed off. "And this," she produced a velvet pouch from a drawer. Eleanor's wedding veil, pearl necklace, and Henry's love poems, discarded like refuse. "They trashed these," Eleanor gasped, fingering the faded ink. "Eleanor, your strength is my anchor. Never let storms erode it." "Because it shames their emptiness," Sophia replied. "Your love, your legacy, they can't match it." Sleepless, Eleanor pored over Henry's words, reclaiming her fire. By morning, Harrington confirmed. "Their frantic reported you missing, claiming vulnerability. Police search underway." Perfect alibi for their narrative, Eleanor mused. "But I'll shatter it." The return drive was electric. Sophia beside her, Harrington trailing. At her mansion, cars lined the drive. Alexander's sleek Audi, Benjamin's flashy Porsche, Clarissa's convertible, Vivian's minivan, Langley's sedan. Eleanor rang her own bell. Clarissa answered. "Paling ma'am." "We feared the worst, wandering off." Confused, "I was clarifying matters," Eleanor said coolly, Entering, her children swarmed, hugs rebuffed. Worried about plans derailed, she probed. Stammers ensued. Harrington knocked. My counsel, Eleanor declared. Expert in familial exploitation. Langley's face soured. This is irregular. No, Eleanor countered. Irregular is forging incompetence to pilfer an empire. Vivian huffed. Eleanor, you're unwell. Let us help. Help yourselves, you mean? Harrington unveiled documents, played recordings. Alexander's voice sneering. Once she's gone, it's ours. Benjamin, hurry her along. Clarissa faked the will. Gasps rippled. The video sealed it. Eleanor's poised testimony, revealing their sins. You've mistaken age for weakness, she intoned on screen. My assets fund eternal haven, not your vices. Chaos erupted. Denials. Accusations. Police arrived, summoned by Harrington, arresting for fraud attempts. As they were led away, Eleanor stood tall. Blood may bind, but betrayal severs. With Sophia, she began Haven's construction, her legacy reborn not in properties, but in... At 74, Eleanor Hargrove wasn't ending, she was ascending. The room was heavy with the scent of polished oak and faded lavender, remnants of a life meticulously curated over 7 decades. I, Mrs. Eleanor Thorne, sat at the head of the grand dining table in my ancestral home, a sprawling Victorian mansion on the outskirts of Boston. At 75, I had played the role of the frail, forgetful widow to perfection for the past year, stumbling over words, misplacing keys, and feigning confusion at family gatherings. It was all a meticulously crafted performance, one that had lured my ungrateful offspring into revealing their true colors. Now, the curtain was about to rise on the final act. My 2 sons, Alexander and Benjamin, flanked by Benjamin's wife, Sophia, stood before me like defendants in a courtroom. Alexander, the eldest at 48, was a slick investment banker with a perpetual smirk that screamed entitlement. Benjamin, 45, ran a failing real estate firm, always one bad deal away from bankruptcy. Sophia, 42, was the sharp-tongued interior designer who had married into the family for the promise of wealth, not love. They had brought along my nephew, Victor, a naive 28-year-old accountant they had roped into witnessing their scheme. And then there was Mr. Harlan, the sleazy notary they had hired, clutching a stack of documents that reeked of forgery. The air crackled with tension as Mr. Hawthorne, my trusted attorney of 30 years, entered the room with my lifelong friend, Clara Benson, at his side. Clara, a retired nurse with a no-nonsense demeanor, carried a leather satchel bulging with evidence. Mr. Hawthorne, tall and silver-haired, adjusted his glasses and greeted the room with a polite nod. Mrs. Thorne, he said in his deep, resonant voice, I believe there are some papers here requiring your signature for the transfer of assets to your sons. Alexander stepped forward, his face a mask of false concern. Mother, we've discussed this. It's for your own good. With your episodes lately, it's best if we handle the estate. We'll make sure you're comfortable in that lovely retirement community we found. I nodded slowly, playing along, my hands trembling slightly for effect. Yes, dear, I suppose you're right. Inside, I seethed. For months, I had overheard their whispers, their plots to declare me incompetent and seize control of what they thought was a modest $2 million fortune. Little did they know, I had been one step ahead. Mr. Hawthorne opened his briefcase with deliberate slowness, pulling out a thick dossier. Before we proceed, I must verify Mrs. Thorne's mental competency. It's standard procedure. Sophia interjected, her voice dripping with honeyed venom. Of course, she's competent. But, you know, at her age, she gets muddled sometimes. Forgets names, dates. It's heartbreaking, really. Mr. Hawthorne's lips curled into a predatory smile. How intriguing. Because I have here a comprehensive medical evaluation from Dr. Ramirez, dated just 3 days ago, affirming that Mrs. Thorne is in peak cognitive health, with no signs of dementia or impairment whatsoever. I reached into my handbag and produced the report, sliding it across the table. I had arranged for the examination well in advance, anticipating this very confrontation. Alexander's face paled, his smirk evaporating like morning mist. Benjamin shifted uncomfortably, while Sophia's perfectly manicured nails dug into her palms. And that's not all, Mr. Hawthorne continued, his tone sharpening. I also possess audio recordings from this very house, captured over the last 18 months. Victor's eyes widened in confusion. He had no idea what he had walked into. Benjamin stammered, recordings. What are you talking about? This is absurd. Mr. Hawthorne pressed a button on a small digital recorder. Alexander's voice echoed through the room. cold and calculating. The old bat won't last much longer. Once she's out of the picture, we divvy up the properties and live like kings. Benjamin's laughter followed. If she fights it, we'll get a judge to declare her unfit. Easy peasy. And then Sophia, she's just a relic. Stick her in a home and forget her. We deserve this after putting up with her nonsense. The room fell silent as a tomb. Victor backed away, horror etched on his young face. Aunt Eleanor? I didn't know. They said this was just about helping you. Sophia's composure cracked. Those are edited. Out of context. Hardly, Mr. Hawthorne retorted dryly. We have over 4 hours of similar discussions, all obtained with Mrs. Thorne's full consent. She installed discreet devices after suspecting your motives years ago. Clara stepped forward, her eyes blazing with righteous anger. She scooped up the forged documents from the table and examined them with expert precision. She had helped me review my real paperwork countless times. These are blatant forgeries. The signatures don't match, and half these assets are invented. The beachfront villa in Maine. It doesn't exist in any registry. Mr. Harlan, the notary, began gathering his things, beads of sweat rolling down his forehead. I was assured everything was legitimate. I think I should go. Not so fast, I said, my voice steady and commanding for the first time in months. I rose from my chair, shedding the frail persona like an old skin. You've all conspired to steal from me, your own flesh and blood, but I'm not the doddering fool you imagined. Mr. Hawthorne produced an envelope from his briefcase, containing a USB drive with a video I had recorded 2 years prior. In it, I detailed not only their schemes but also personal secrets. Alexander's embezzlement from his firm, Benjamin's gambling debts, Sophia's affair that had nearly destroyed her marriage. Shall we watch? I asked sweetly. Their faces were masks of terror. Alexander's jaw slack, Benjamin's hands shaking, Sophia's eyes welling with tears. Victor looked ready to bolt. Sit, I commanded, my tone brooking no dissent. They obeyed like chastened children, slumping into chairs. Mr. Harlan hovered by the door, but Clara blocked his path with a stern glare. Victor remained standing, wringing his hands. I began pacing the room, the Persian rug muffling my steps. Let's discuss the truth, shall we? You thought my estate was worth $2 million. A quaint house, some stocks, perhaps a vacation home. They exchanged uneasy glances. Confirming my suspicions, they had hired a private investigator to snoop, but I had fed him false leads. You're woefully mistaken, I declared, by about $4 million. The gasp was collective. Even Clara raised an eyebrow. She knew much, but not all, of my secrets. My true net worth, I savored the words, including hidden assets, offshore investments, and ventures I've nurtured in secrecy for 40 years, surpasses $6 million. Sophia whispered, 6 million. Her voice cracked like fine china. 6.3 million. To be precise, I corrected. Funds you planned to squander while I rotted in some bargain basement nursing home. Mr. Hawthorne fired up his laptop, projecting a sleek presentation onto the white wall. Slides flipped by. Primary residence, $750,000. Lakeside cabin in Vermont, $500,000. Penthouse, in New York, $400,000. Then, the revelations, 3 apartments in Paris, a boutique vineyard in Napa Valley, stakes in 4 biotech startups, cryptocurrency holdings, and accounts in Cayman Islands banks. Benjamin choked out, how? You're just, you single quotes a senile old widow. I finished for him, my laugh bitter. No, my dears. I'm a savvy businesswoman who built an empire while you dismissed me as irrelevant. I started with your father's insurance money after his passing and turned it into a fortune through smart risks you never dreamed of. Clara laid another folder on the table. And don't forget the enterprises Mrs. Thorne has overseen quietly, a venture capital firm, an online education platform for seniors, and her passion project. What project? Alexander demanded, his voice hoarse. I smiled. The moment I had waited for, the Serenity Haven, a state-of-the-art community for elderly men and women discarded by their families. A place where dignity isn't a luxury but a right. Mr. Hawthorne switched slides to stunning 3D renders. Lush gardens, a wellness center with pools and therapy rooms, communal kitchens, tech-equipped libraries, and private suites for 250 residents. Land acquired in the Berkshires, blueprints approved, groundbreaking in 6 weeks. Sophia's eyes narrowed, and we single quotes What? Supposed to fund this? No, I said, you're the muse. Every belittling comment, every plot to institutionalize me, inspired another feature. Thanks to you, it'll be unparalleled. Victor finally spoke, his voice trembling. Aunt Eleanor, I swear, I thought this was routine. I didn't, I believe you. Victor, I said gently, you're innocent. But them? I pointed at my sons, and Sophia. They're facing justice. Mr. Hawthorne cleared his throat. Elder fraud is a serious offense federal level. Document forgery, conspiracy to commit guardianship abuse. We're looking at 5 to 10 years per charge, plus fines. Alexander leaped up. You can't. We're family. Family. I echoed, stepping close enough to see the fear in his eyes. You, Alexander, whom I funded through Harvard $120,000. Bought your first condo, $70,000. Bailed out your failed STARTUP, $50,000. Gave you love for 48 years. I turned to Benjamin. You hospital bills for your daughter's surgery, $150,000. Supported you after your layoff. Letting you stay here rent-free for 3 years. Emotional anchor during your depressions. To Sophia, I embraced you as my own daughter, defended you against gossip, included you in holidays, vacations, treated you better than your estranged family ever did. Tears flowed freely now mean of cathartic release, theirs of desperation. I let you think me weak, faked frailty to test your loyalty. You failed miserably. Clara placed the real will on the table, drafted 4 years ago, revised last month. Alexander, $10,000. B. Clara placed the real will on the table, drafted 4 years ago, revised last month. Alexander, $10,000. Benjamin, $10,000. Sophia, nothing. As you're not blood and have shown no bond. Benjamin howled. That's it. We're your heirs. The remainder $6,270,000 goes to Serenity Haven, Elder Abuse Prevention Charities, and Clara, who's been truer family than you. Sophia sobbed. Alexander paced furiously. Benjamin deflated. But, I said, dangling the carrot, there's redemption. What? Sophia clutched at it. Work at Serenity Haven. 5 years, as managers, caregivers, volunteers. Prove you value life over legacy. Earn back trust, and perhaps an inheritance. 5 years. Alexander balked. Unpaid. Minimum wage, room and board, I clarified. Learn humility, or face prosecution and disinheritance, Mr. Hawthorne added. Decision by dawn. Accept. Start tomorrow. Refuse. Charges filed. They huddled, whispering frantically. I gazed out the window at my cherished herb garden, blooming defiantly in the autumn chill. Nature endured, adapted, thrived, despite storms. Do you know what hurt most? I asked, turning back. Not the greed, the dismissal, reducing me to an obstacle, not a mother who sacrificed everything. Alexander broke first. Mom, we were wrong, scared of losing you, but, yes, greedy too. Benjamin nodded. We'll do it, the center. Sophia defeated. Me too. Victor exhaled in relief. Mr. Harlan slunk out, unblocked now. As they signed preliminary agreements, I felt a weight lift. Not forgiveness not yet, but a path forward. Justice tempered with mercy. Betrayal met with opportunity. In the end, that's what family should be, not blood, but choices. Over the next months, construction hummed at Serenity Haven. My children, reluctant, at first threw themselves into the work. Alexander organized finances, discovering purpose in budgeting for others. Benjamin oversaw builds, his real estate skills shining ethically. Sophia designed interiors, her flair creating warm spaces. I supervised from afar, mending bridges slowly. Victor joined voluntarily, becoming a true ally. Clara and Mr. Hawthorne ensured compliance. 5 years passed. They transformed not just the haven but themselves. At the grand opening, amid residents' grateful smiles, I revised my will once more. They had earned it. But that's another story. For now, in that dining room, a new chapter began, not often Jen's but renewal. In the dim light of my study, I spoke without facing them. It wasn't uncovering your scheme to defraud me. It wasn't overhearing you tally my assets, like scavengers over a carcass. The deepest wound was realizing you'd never truly understood me. I pivoted slowly, taking in their bewildered expressions. For 68 years, I've been a fighter, a creator, a visionary. I began with $3,000 scraped together from odd jobs and transformed it into a fortune exceeding $4 million. I forged a tech startup empire in a field ruled by cutthroat innovators, all on my own. I maneuvered through Silicon Valley's glass ceilings, outsmarting competitors twice my size. I balanced raising 3 kids with coding late into the night and sealing deals that changed industries. My tone sharpened, echoing a lifetime of triumphs they'd willfully overlooked. And you dismissed me as a senile old lady who needed puzzle apps to stay sharp. You viewed me as a hurdle, not the architect of the legacy you craved to plunder. Sophia approached and rested a gentle hand on my arm. Her touch grounded me, a reminder that some bonds are rooted in genuine care, not opportunism. Anything else we should know? I pressed on, sinking back into my armchair. The Harmony Haven isn't merely a side venture, it's my enduring testament. It's evidence that a seasoned woman can reshape society rather than fade away in a sterile ward reeking of bleach. Mr. Hargrove switched slides on his tablet, unveiling intricate blueprints for the Haven. It was breathtaking, sleek structures nestled amid lush parks, studios for crafts and performances, a digital archive, wellness centers, and residences that felt like sanctuaries. 150 women will call this home, I elaborated. Women cast aside by selfish kin. Women stripped bare by predatory separations in their twilight years. Women seeking a haven to age with grace and purpose. Impressive, conceded Elias, who'd stayed silent amid the storm. When's the launch? Groundbreaking in 8 weeks. Initial phase operational in 15 months. And should my offspring choose atonement, they'll contribute to its creation. What sort of tasks? Nora inquired warily. Everything imaginable, Sophia interjected. Maintenance, landscaping, office duties, elder support trio, grounding labor that instills the merit of contribution over entitlement. But we're clueless about that stuff. Victor Wind. You'll adapt, I retorted flatly, just as I mastered programming at 25 with no formal training, just as I pivoted to venture capital at 45, just as I embraced AI tools at 55. The key difference, I pursued it for innovation and expansion. You'll embrace it for endurance and renewal. Victor rose and paced, his fingers fidgeting. This feels like a fever dream. 3 days back, we assumed ... and now. 3 days ago, you fancied yourselves heirs to a multi-million-dollar windfall. I completed. Today, you're the leads in a parable on familial deceit. And if we commit, Nora probed. If we toil at your haven for 4 years, will you amend the trust? The pivotal query. One that would reveal if this was equity or retribution. If over 4 years you prove you can cherish souls for their essence, not their estates, if you master generosity over greed, if you embody the integrity I once envisioned for you, then yes, I'll revise it. How much? Victor demanded, ever blunt on finances. Sufficient for security, but insufficient to revert to your avaricious ways. Say, $400,000 apiece. $400,000. A bounty for many. Yet a sliver of what they'd schemed to seize. Enough to incentivize evolution, but not to erase the imperative of ongoing effort and self-improvement. And the bulk? Elias queried. The remainder stays with Harmony Haven eternally, safeguarding women like me from being deemed liabilities by their blood. Mr. Hargrove snapped his tablet shut with finality. As stated, 48 hours to deliberate. Tomorrow at noon, either report to the Harmony Haven site geared for labor, or I pursue charges with the prosecutor's office. He rose to depart, pausing to add, and skip hunting for alternate counsel. Evidence duplicates are secured in various vaults. This isn't bargaining, it's a mandate. Post Hargrove's exit, silence smothered us like fog. Would you truly press charges? Elias whispered hoarsely. Were you truly plotting to warehouse me in assisted living while liquidating my ventures? I parried. Fair point. Sophia flanked me. Mrs. Beaumont, certain you wish to offer this olive branch after their treachery? Affirmative, I affirmed, my spirit still raw. For they're my flesh and blood, and a parent clings to the dream of their progeny ascending to greatness. It was my ultimate wager, my fading optimism that lineage trumped lust for wealth. Dawn would disclose if I'd nurtured kin or imposters. The following morn, I stirred pre-sunrise, brewing tea in the kitchen where my offspring had toasted my fabricated frailty with discount bubbly. Sophia had bunked in the spare suite, and we observed the horizon shift from ink to ash, anticipating their verdict. Think they'll appear? Sophia murmured, decanting tea into heirloom china from my grandmother. Frankly, uncertain. One fragment yearns for yes, another, no, and I can't discern the dominant pull. At 10 a.m., my cell chimed Meister Hargrove. Morning, Evelyn, primed for the inaugural lesson. As primed as one can be to unearth if family endures or if DNA is the sole tether. I've been on site since 9, prepping. Site managers are apprised of the unique interns Intern's a polished term for coerced, redeemers. Any trace? None, but 2 hours remain. Sophia and I reached the Harmony Haven plot at 11:30. My inaugural visit since site prep. Emotion surged. There lay my aspiration materializing. Excavators sculpted terrain for healing groves. Crews staked outlines where edifices would ascend, sheltering women forsaken by their own. It's magnificent, Sophia breathed, linking arms as we toured. It's renewal, I amended. Affirmation that reinvention knows no age, that elder women defy obsolescence. Mr. Hargrove neared with a notepad and neon vest. All set. If they materialize, they'll tackle fundamentals, site clearance, supply sorting, aiding crews with grunt work. Absent, I meet the DA at 1 p.m. Las 11:55. Las 11:57. 11:59. Precisely at noon, a rideshare halted at the gate. My pulse thundered like a storm. Elias disembarked first, in faded cargos and a tee from his college days. Nora trailed in fresh overalls evidently procured overnight. Victor emerged last, in gym attire, hair in a messy bun. They appeared fragile, apprehensive, authentically mortal. They trudged nearer, akin to inmates en route to sentencing. We're present, Elias stated plainly. Evident, I responded evenly, though my emotions some resolved. We've resolved, Nora rasped, to attempt mending. Certain, commence, and it's irrevocable. For years solid, or incarceration beckons. Victor dipped his chin, sure, or at minimum, sure, we evade jail. Not lofty impetus, but a foothold. Mr. Hargrove advanced with surplus vests. Greetings to Harmony Haven. I'm your overseer, and for 4 years, I rank second only to your matriarch. He distributed vests and a rule pamphlet. Shifts, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. hour lunch. No griping or sulking tolerated. Bi-weekly assessments. Initial boss, Carla. He gestured to a sturdy woman with weathered palms and a warm grin. She's got 25 years in builds and nil tolerance for entitled heirs. Who've shunned sweat equity. Carla appraised them like a scout spotting dawdlers. Any manual toil history. Crickets. Splendid, she beamed. Ease in. That debris heap. She indicated a mound of splintered timber and scrap iron. Relocate it yonder. 200 meters off. Manually. Victor's jaw dropped. By hand. Affirmative, Carla echoed. Bit by bit. Grounding toil for those relearning exertions worth. I observed as they neared the stack like scaling Everest. Elias hoisted initial lumber. Grimacing. Nora overloaded and teetered. Victor eyed his pristine sneakers and exhaled defeat. Over ensuing hours, I monitored. Messy spectacle. Elias griped over blisters. Nora paused for air by minute. Victor twisted an ankle early and sniffled discreetly. Yet they persisted. Lunchtime, they slumped earthbound with laborers. Munching plain wraps and tepid Gatorade from communal flasks. Garb soiled, limbs grimy, visages flushed from toil and heat. Status? I queried, nearing mid-break. Like bulldozed, Elias groaned, needing calves. Tougher than anticipated, Nora confessed. Assumed what? That builders toil for leisure. Victor met my gaze, hinting comprehension. Never pondered the grind of such livelihoods. Now enlightened. And this? Merely day 1 of 1460. Afternoon intensified. Bodies unaccustomed rebelled. Motions labored. But circa 2 p.m. Shift. Mutual aid emerged. Elias shouldered loads Nora couldn't. Nora fetched hydration for Elias, spotting dehydration. Victor sourced bandages for Nora's chafed skin. Gestures of kinship absent for decades. At 4 p.m., Carla whistled. Day over. Tomorrow, 7 sharp. Tardy. Reset. My trio hobbled to their summoned ride, moving like centenarians. Pre-boarding, Elias pivoted. Mom, gratitude for the shot, undeserved as it is, not yet deserved, I rectified. Perhaps post 1459 days. That eve, Sophia and I dined quietly, digesting. Odd viewing airs as weary workers, yet promising. Will they endure? Sophia pondered over cleanup. Undecided, but intriguingly eager to witness their metamorphosis across 4 years. I gazed at emerging constellations. The ordeal's crux commenced, observing if reprisal birthed rebirth, if ordeal fostered maturity. For years to ascertain if kin prevailed or if I'd forged superior. A clan on esteem, not utility. Fate would decree. 3.5 years elapsed since that debut of grit and remorse. Harmony Haven transcended sketches, a thriving oasis, with 150 women thriving honorably. I strolled paths my offspring aided in paving. eyeing dwellers and sculpture workshops, debate circles, and gentle tea. I strolled paths my offspring aided in paving, eyeing dwellers and sculpture workshops, debate circles, and gentle tea. Aromas of lavender and honeysuckle wafted, blending with chatter from the Innovation Lab. Mrs. Beaumont hailed Beatrice, a 78-year-old who'd arrived post-family, deeming her upkeep burdensome. Now she led our tech literacy initiative, teaching peers coding basics for digital storytelling. Morning, Beatrice. Coding progress. Phenomenal. 30 apps built diaries, family trees, even simple games. Women who'd engineered bridges, piloted planes, managed farms amid depressions, narratives nearly erased. Precisely my vision. A refuge where seniors shone as wisdom vaults, not ENCUMBRANCES. Seen Nora today, in the atrium, prepping for Theo's Centennial Bash. Nora prepping events. 5 years prior, the notion of her orchestrating elder festivities would have amused me to tears. Now, routine. I located her arranging balloons with artisan focus. Her hands, toughened by labor, strung garlands deftly, streamers in gold or silver. She queried, sensing my approach. Gold-Theo favors warmth over clinical sheen. Gold then, she proceeded, layering details with newfound serenity. You know, Theo shared she was among the pioneering female pilots in her era. In the bustling city of Boston, where historic cobblestone streets met towering skyscrapers, lived Mrs. Eleanor Harrington, a woman of remarkable resilience at the age of 71. She had built her fortune from scratch in the cutthroat world of real estate development during an era when women were expected to stay home and tend to families. Her late husband, Thomas, had been her steadfast partner in both life and business, passing away a decade earlier from a sudden heart attack. Together, they had raised 3 children. Edward, the eldest and most ambitious, Marcus, the charming middle child with a penchant for quick schemes, and Sophia, the youngest, whose beauty and cunning had always turned heads. But as Eleanor aged, her children began to see her, not as a mother, but as an obstacle to their inheritance. It started subtly, Edward suggesting she step back from managing her properties, Marcus casually mentioning assisted living facilities, and Sophia probing about her will during family dinners. Eleanor sensed the shift, but nothing prepared her for the betrayal that unfolded one rainy afternoon in her elegant brownstone home. She had overheard them in the study, their voices low but unmistakable. She's losing it, Edward whispered, forgetting appointments, misplacing documents. We need to act before she squanders everything. Marcus chuckled, declare her incompetent, a doctor's note, some forged papers easy, then we control the estate. Sophia added, her tone icy, and split it 3 ways. No more waiting for the old bat to croak. Eleanor's heart shattered, but her mind sharpened like a blade. She confronted them that evening over a tense dinner. I know what you've been planning, she said calmly, her blue eyes piercing. The room fell silent. Edward stammered denials. Marcus flashed his disarming smile, and Sophia feigned innocence. But Eleanor was no fool. You've underestimated me, she declared. And now, you'll pay the price. She contacted her trusted lawyer, Mr. Theodore Blackwell, a sharp-minded attorney who had handled her affairs for decades. Together, they devised a plan that would turn vengeance into a lesson in humanity. Eleanor liquidated a portion of her assets, $5 million, to fund the creation of the Serenity Haven, a state-of-the-art center for elderly women who had been abandoned, abused, or left destitute by their families. It would offer not just shelter, but dignity, medical care, educational programs, recreational activities, and emotional support. The center opened its doors in a renovated Victorian mansion on the outskirts of the city, surrounded by lush gardens and walking paths. But the real twist came in Eleanor's revised will, revealed to her children in Mr. Blackwell's office. If you contest my competency or attempt to seize my assets, she explained, you'll face criminal charges for fraud and elder abuse. Instead, you'll work at Serenity Haven for 5 years full-time, no salary beyond basic living expenses. Fail, and you inherit nothing. Succeed, and perhaps you'll earn something more valuable than money. The children were furious. Edward, a high-powered executive, balked at the idea of menial labor. Marcus, who lived off investments and charm, called it blackmail. Sophia, accustomed to luxury spas and social galas, wept dramatically. But with the evidence of their plot in Mr. Blackwell's hands recordings, emails, they had no choice. They signed the agreement, their faces masks of resentment. The first year was hellish. Edward was assigned to administration, handling paperwork and budgets with a scowl. Marcus worked in maintenance, fixing leaks and tending gardens, his hands blistered for the first time. Sophia assisted in daily care, helping with meals and baths, her designer nails chipped. They complained endlessly, treating the residents like burdens. Eleanor oversaw from afar, living in a modest apartment nearby, visiting weekly with her old friend Beatrice, a retired nurse who had become her confidant. Beatrice, with her warm laugh and no-nonsense attitude, often joined Eleanor for tea in the center's sunroom. "They're miserable," Beatrice observed one day, "but misery can be a teacher." Eleanor nodded. "I hope so. Thomas always said, true character emerges in adversity." As months turned to years, cracks appeared in the children's armor. Edward, grumbling through financial ledgers, met Isabella, a 78-year-old resident who had once run a successful bakery chain in the 1950s. "You think balancing these books is tough?" she teased him one afternoon. "Try managing suppliers during rationing after the war." Intrigued, Edward listened to her stories, gradually seeking her advice on streamlining the center's operations. Isabella's sharp mind, honed by decades of entrepreneurship, humbled him. He began implementing her ideas, cost-saving measures that freed up funds for better meals and activities. Marcus, sweating in the gardens, bonded with Clara, an 82-year-old former dancer crippled by a fall. She had arrived, wheelchair-bound, her spirit broken after her son sold her home without consent. Marcus's task was to wheel her around. But one day she challenged him. "Push me to the physical therapy room. I want to try standing." Reluctantly, he complied. Over weeks, he assisted in her exercises, witnessing her determination. "Why bother?" he once snapped. "You're old." Clara's eyes flashed. "Age doesn't erase dreams, boy, it refines them." Marcus moved, started researching adaptive exercises online, turning his maintenance role into informal therapy sessions. Clara's first steps became his triumph too. Sophia, in the caregiving wing, initially recoiled from the drudgery. But she encountered Evelyn, a 75-year-old ex-librarian with severe arthritis, abandoned by her nephew. Evelyn's hands trembled too much to hold a book, let alone groom herself. Sophia's first manicure attempt was clumsy, but Evelyn's gratitude, "I feel human again," softened her. Inspired, Sophia proposed a wellness corner, a space for gentle massages, adapted hairstyling, and aromatherapy. These women deserve to feel beautiful, she argued to Eleanor, who approved. Sophia's greed faded, replaced by empathy. By the third year, transformations deepened. The center thrived. 80 residents now, with art classes, book clubs, and yoga sessions. Eleanor's children no longer faked politeness, they invested emotionally. Edward collaborated with Isabella on a financial literacy program for residents, teaching them to manage pensions and avoid scams. "I used to think wisdom came from boardrooms," he confessed to Eleanor during a rare family lunch. "But Isabella built an empire when women couldn't vote in some places. I was blind to dismiss age." Marcus, now passionate about rehabilitation, enrolled in online courses for geriatric care. Clara danced again today. He beamed one evening. Just a few steps, but her joy. "It's addictive." Sophia's wellness corner expanded. She developed soothing hand treatments for arthritis, drawing from Evelyn's suggestions. "I regret seeing you as a cash cow," she admitted to Eleanor in the garden. "You were a pioneer, and I tried to rob you instead of learning." Eleanor watched, her heart mending. Beatrice noted, "They're not acting anymore. This place changes people." Monthly reviews with Mr. Blackwell confirmed it. "Genuine?" he asked. "You can't fake this for years," Eleanor replied. As the 5th year dawned, the ultimate test loomed. On a crisp autumn morning, Edward, Marcus, and Sophia entered Eleanor's office at the center, dressed in practical work attire. "Your obligation ends today," she said. "You're free." They exchanged glances. "We've decided." Sophia spoke first. "We want to stay. This is our purpose now." Edward nodded. "These women are family. The work matters more than any corporate ladder." Marcus added, "I've found joy in helping Clara walk her garden path. I can't leave that." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes. "And your inheritance?" They surprised her further. "Renounce it," Edward said. "Let it fund expansions. We've seen money's true power here, restoring lives." Eleanor tore up the old will, revealing a new one. Edward, Executive Director. Marcus, Head of Rehabilitation. Sophia, Director of Wellness. "The bulk of my estate for $0.8 million builds a national network of havens." They embraced, a family reborn. At a resident assembly, Clara stood shakily. "Your children arrived as strangers, but leave as saviors. You've raised miracles, Mrs. Harrington." That night, over dinner with Beatrice, Laughter filled the air. What's next? Beatrice asked. Revolutionize elder care, Edward declared. Marcus grinned. Ensure no woman faces abandonment. Sophia smiled. Build on respect, not greed. In the garden under starlight, Eleanor reflected. Thomas's words echoed. Legacy isn't stone. It's a path. She had forged one from betrayal to redemption, guiding her children and countless women toward dignity and love. At 76, her victory was complete. Not revenge, but grace eternal.